space is a place for us.
Real people with real issues.
Discussing real topics.
Black Space.
A safe space for our community.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Black Space Live. I'm your host, Ivo, and we are here today with a wonderful panel. We're discussing the Black family and the importance of marriage in the Black family and the Black community. So let's take time for all the panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Anthony.
Hi, I'm Anthony Sims. I'm in Dallas, Texas.
And what do you do, Anthony? What's your background?
My background is in insurance and financial services, and currently I am doing funeral and cemetery sales.
Okay. Penny?
I am Penny Finley. I am from the beautiful, sunny, crazy state of Florida here in Orlando. My background is law and politics, former lobbyist, and I currently run a home services concierge, which actually includes some of the financial things that he mentioned. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Confirming that we have sound in the group, Parul?
Yes, we have sound in the group.
Wonderful. So, Parul, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Parul Benders, currently live in the Metro Atlanta area, background in DoD contracting and financial analysis, currently an entrepreneur. I am a baker.
Wonderful. And Felicia?
Hi, I'm Felicia Paul. I currently live in Metro Atlanta. Amazing mom of 4 beautiful kids. And my background is right now I currently own my own equestrian apparel company.
Equestrian apparel company. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. We have a great bunch. I'm Ivo. I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I am a web and multimedia developer. And I like hosting panels on Facebook Live. That's what I do in my spare time. So this evening we're talking about marriage and the Black family. Is marriage still important? Is marriage what we should be looking to? Why are our divorce rates so high? And how do we feel about it? How do we move forward toward Black excellence and empowerment within the family unit? Did anyone have any thoughts that they want to start with?
I do. I think I have so much to say about this topic, but I'll try to keep my comments brief. I think that marriage is still important. I don't think that it's important when I, just for future reference, when I reference Black, I'm speaking African American specifically. I think that everyone outside, all Black people outside of places named the United States, view marriage differently. I think that marriage is important. I think that much like the most basic form of the body is the cell, healthy cells lead to healthy organs, which lead to healthy body. I think that families are to healthy communities to a healthy country. So the more healthy the families, the more healthy the community, the more healthy the country. I think that we're teaching specifically in the Black community that it's not important. I think that we've gotten to this point of independence and not interdependence. And I think that the focus now is on money and earnings. And I think that as women earn more, there's a correlation between women, excelling in the workplace and marriage rates going down, because traditionally, households were very patriarchal and depended upon men earning. But now that women are Black women specifically are the most educated and the highest earning of the races and the genders, I just don't think that they see it as important because the financial need isn't there, and so it's not important to them. That's my opinion.
You said you don't think marriage is as important to Black women?
I'm speaking specifically to Blacks. I don't think it ranks up there anymore. I don't think if you were to and this is again my opinion. If you were to poll Black women, I believe, and I know that there are Black women in this panel kind of side-eye me, but I believe that if you were to poll them of the top 5, I don't think marriage would be 1 or 2. I think education will probably be up there as number one. Career and finances will probably be number 2. I don't know that marriage would fall in the top 3.
Okay. That's certainly your opinion. You're entitled to it. We're going to discuss it, get some opinions from other Black women, see what they have to say. Anthony, do you agree with Penny's assertion that you don't think it's as important to Black women to be married?
No, I don't agree. I do think that it's very important to them. However, I think the process of getting there is not important to them. They want it, but the work, I guess, to be put into it and the patience it takes to deal with another flawed human being is not there, because they have so many other things going for them. They're focusing more on their families, they're focusing more on their education, all the things that Penny mentioned before. Makes dealing with a flawed person less of a priority. They want somebody to come that's going to be perfect and that can fit into the box that they have designed for themselves, I think.
That's very, very interesting. I say it's interesting, and of course, Perul and Felicia are both waiting to add their thoughts, and I want to hear them. I'm sure we all do. But I want to say first, I think it's interesting that you guys feel that way, because while it's true that Black women now are more educated, more independent, and are less dependent on marriage, that's not the same as not wanting it. And then the way that you see things versus the way that we see things, I find it interesting that that's the way it comes off, because in my experience, and most of the Black women I know, that's not what we're feeling. But if that seems to be what we're projecting, then we certainly need to have these discussions and take the way we see each other very seriously. Perul, Felicia, did you have anything you wanted to add before I move to the book that we were discussing?
Yes.
Go ahead, Felicia.
Okay, as a Black woman, I agree with Anthony on certain things, and I would have to disagree with Penny, because if you do poll a large group of Black women, marriage is very important. One thing I disagree with Anthony about is, yeah, there's a difference between a mature woman who knows what she wants and a young woman. Okay. For a young woman, the importance is not so much character of a man. It's the outer appearances. As you get older, the mature woman, and that can be from any age a woman can become mature, and she starts looking at characteristics. It is the man's role to show her what he is. If he's looking for a wife, what's been happening now is communication. In our Black community, there's a lack of respect, there's a lack of empathy, and communication breakdown. So the man and the woman come together, and there's no real clear, oh, are we dating? Are we doing this? So marriage, it's so hard to get to marriage right now, because Black women do want to get married, but they want to go through the courtship. They want to be dated. They want the romance. They want to see a man behaving like a husband while he is a boyfriend. Like, I was having this discussion last night. Is it you walk down the aisle, you're a okay boyfriend, you walk down the aisle, you put a ring on her finger, and miraculously you turn into this amazing husband. Marriage is a process. Being a husband is a process of learning. Being a good wife is a process. And you teach each other how you're going to be. That is what is broken down, because when you come together, you want to see, okay, are you a good husband quality? Are you a good wife quality? It can be any variation of characteristics that a man or woman is looking for in each other. And you have to communicate that to each other, or else there is a breakdown. The Black woman does want to be married, but she wants to do it the right way. And it starts with courtship and getting to know someone.
Now, what I heard you say, one aspect of what you said actually agreed with Anthony, when you said that there's a lack of empathy. Apparently, there's a lack of empathy on both sides. However, one thing that I found interesting about Anthony's take on Black women being unwilling to deal with flawed human beings, I had the devil is a lie moment, because all the Black women I know in relationships are dealing with flaws and dealing with flaws and dealing with maybe too much, being too patient sometimes, being a little too maternal because we have been conditioned to deal with flawed human beings and accept whatever the Black man brings us if we want to date Black men. So the idea that many of us don't have that empathy, I don't see that as much. I see too much empathy. Peru, what are your thoughts?
I agree on that as well. As soon as she said there's a difference between a woman and a young person, that actually really stood out for me because yes, absolutely, Black women want to get married. I don't want to say it's necessarily the goal of women nowadays. Like even like Anthony said, I do agree it's not necessarily on the top 5 for a lot of women, but just like they said, you know, when you are younger, I think it's a generational thing right now because a lot of women right now are being taught that they can be independent. They are able to take care of their own items, but you know, with that generation, the generation is still young. The generation is still developing the things that are important to them and wanting to have that individualism so that they can bring that knowledge and that purpose into the marriage that they aspire to have in the future. So I think that women now are focusing more on self-care and what's important to them and making sure that whatever relationship they do get into is going to be healthy, which is why the courtship portion is important because they want to make sure when you're getting to know this person, is it going to be healthy for me? Is it going to be a situation where I feel I can grow with this person? It's not going to be perfect all the time, but at least I have that connection with them and understand, okay, we have the same goals, we have the same aspirations, we have the same, we want to have children together, we want to do all of these things, but it is a rushed process for a lot of people who, you know, if you go into it and you get this microwave society thing going on where you think it's supposed, like one party thinks you're supposed to just jump in and do it and the other party's not ready. Of course, it's going to seem like people don't want to get married because you're bumping heads right in the beginning, and it brings on a pessimistic attitude about the entire concept of having a relationship in the community.
So let me ask this question based on something that you just said about the time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Me being a single guy and dating and, you know, dating Black women, there's often this conversation that starts out about, I'm not going to date a man for X amount of time before he decides that I'm the kind of woman that he wants to marry. So that's going to be different for everybody. So for me, if I don't see what I'm looking, I see the potential, but not everything that I'm looking for within the first year or two, I might give it a little bit longer, where that year or two might be too long for her. And I see Ivo looking a certain kind of way, a year might be too long for her. You see what I'm saying? So it's going to vary.
It don't take a whole day to recognize sunshine, honey.
It really doesn't, but I think, but
married a woman in a year, so you're going for year 2, baby. We don't have that kind of time.
what I will say in his defense, now,
Everything's
yes,
not
you know
sunshine,
what it is
though.
that you want. It should, you know, once you reach a certain age and you know what it is that you could bring to the table, yes, you don't want to spend a lot of time. You can identify characteristics and things that you gravitate toward. However, and I'm saying this particularly for me only, and you know, people in my situation, I'm, you know, back in the dating scene, you know, divorced and everything else, and I have children. The time that I'm able to allocate someone to be able to get to know me on that quick phase within a year may take a little longer. I'm not going to bring a man home to meet my children immediately. So it's going to take time for him to see me in the household, you know, environment. How am I with my children? How do I handle my household? What is it that I do? So it may take some more time. So that's subjective, I think, based on the individuals and the situations that they're dealing with at the time. So
Okay, but
it may
one
take
thing I
1
can
or 2
add-
years, it may take 6 months.
I do absolutely agree that it takes time to get to know people. What I'm saying is, and you shouldn't marry someone quickly. That's a lifelong commitment for most people. However,
What is quickly for you, though?
I can tell in a couple months if you have ways that are compatible with mine or not. It's not about, everything isn't about love.
Right.
I can love you.
A lot of compatibility.
But if your ways are incompatible with my ways, we're not going to be able to sustain a long-term relationship, even if we love each other deeply. And you can tell that within a few months. Now, whether or not someone who seems to be compatible and agreeable is the one, I agree that that would take a lot longer, especially.
So let me add this, Ivo. What I can say is intimacy adds a different kind of complexity to the whole dynamic. If a couple can leave intimacy on the shelf for a while, it gives you the opportunity to understand a person's character, because then lust jumps in, and once lust gets involved, that is when you start overlooking, well, you know, I can deal with that, and I can deal with this because the sex is amazing.
Right, yeah.
But okay, what happens when, you know, you all are apart, or you all have to work, and you know, you're not having as much sex, or whatever, and now you have to come together and try to communicate with this person without all of those, you know, emotions. So people jump into, and I think a lot of men don't understand that for women, when you put sex on the table, it takes the whole thing. Not all women feel like that, because there are a lot of casual, but when you put intimacy on the table, especially a woman who's looking for marriage, how many 2-year opportunities does a woman have after she's gone through? One man took 2 years to figure out if she's the one. Another man's going to take a year to figure out if she's the one. And you're having sex with all these men, and it's taking you all so long to figure out she's the one, while she's looking for one good man. Yes, Peru.
Michael Harvey said, Ivo, would that mentality and lack of discerning by Black women at an early age be the reason a lot of women have issues giving quality men attention and stay in the cycle of toxic relationships?
Sorry, could you read that again? I don't think I quite understood.
Would that mentality and lack of discerning by Black women at an early age be the reason a lot of women have issues giving quality men attention and stay in the cycle of toxic relations?
I believe it's quite possible, based on what Felicia was saying and what I was saying. When you're young and you make decisions based on how you feel, instead of weighing everything in the balance equally, it can get you into bad habits, bad patterns. You can end up dating the same guy over and over again and not ever understand, or the same woman. This goes both ways, not realizing that you're inviting or allowing toxicity in because a certain personality type brings character flaws with it. And you may like some things about it, like girls who like bad boys, women who like thugs. Okay.
Yeah, they're wasting time.
Get it? But there are some other negative character traits that come along with that you shouldn't deal with. It's not okay. And you don't simply have to deal with it because you love who you love. And we make excuses. Oh, those are the ups and downs of relationships. No, you trifling and we incompatible. And I shouldn't have to deal with that just because I'm attracted to one or two things about you. But when we get caught up in those cycles as young people, as we get older, we may not be self-aware enough to recognize what we should be looking for in other eligible candidates, because we have habits and preferences that we developed in our younger years that we never let go of as we became more mature.
Right.
So I agree with that.
Yep.
I think also, and I still agree, but there's in 2010, I think the census said 1 in 4 Black women 35 and up, or 1 in 4 is either never been married or been married. 25, 1 in 4 has never been married. It's pretty high compared to like 1 in 10 white women, and probably about 1 in 50 Asian women.
Oh, wow.
That's a pretty high statistic, and I get that the conversation is, women want to be married, but they're not getting married. But getting back to the conversation,
and an author, I have some data and an author who wants to speak to that, because we can talk opinions all night long. Fact and numbers speak for themselves.
Right.
And so there's an interesting book. It's called "Is Marriage for White People? How the African-American Marriage Decline Affects Everyone," by Ralph Richard Banks. He's a writer and a Stanford law professor. Now he concludes, this is the Google overview, he concludes that single is the new Black, which poses problems for the African-American community. However, what Ralph Banks did, he scoured all the available data on marriage and relationships, specifically as it relates to Blacks and whites comparatively, analyzed it, and then came to some conclusions and offers advice for Black women who absolutely do want to be married, because the reasons why we're not getting married are not what you think. So the author, I must say first, he's a Black man married to a Black woman with Black children. He's Black. And the book is based on data analysis and anecdotal evidence, empirical evidence. These are not his opinions, okay? But based on the data, the author advises as follows. If a Black woman wants to marry at her own income and status level or above, she's going to have to date outside of race. Because the numbers say Black women who do get married are marrying down, because we are the most educated demographic and we don't have suitable mates. So Black women who do get married to Black men generally have to marry down. This is not his opinion, this is the data. And if Black women want to marry up, they have to marry outside of their race. The options are simply not there. And then he advises for Black women who insist on marrying Black men, but want to marry up or marry at least at their same status in education and income level. He also advises to be willing to date outside your race, because right now, if you don't know it, and I'm sure we all have seen it on some level or another, eligible Black men are out here clowning because they know they're in short supply and they can do what they want to do. And if we don't force them to compete, this is what the author's advice is, by being willing to date outside our race, they'll never get any, the situation will never get any better. Furthermore, for all of y'all Black men don't cheat, because I'm tired, the data says white men tend to be serial monogamists, where Black men are more likely to date in concurrent relationships. So the numbers say Black men cheat, Black men like to be players, and Black women can't find anyone to marry, so they have to marry outside their race or marry down. How do you feel about those numbers, Penny and Anthony?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I'm curious to know, and I was going to allude to this point a moment ago. I said this because women are earning more, they're wanting to be married less. I made that point before, and that's not specifically the Black women, that's just women in general, because there's no need, there's the financial need.
We don't want to get married for the reasons that men think they want to get married. We don't need to marry, but that doesn't mean we don't want to be married. We just don't need to be married for security or what we used to. Women used to have to get married to have a better life, to have someone to provide for them. We don't have to do it, but that doesn't mean we don't want to be married.
But if the conversation is, I can't find someone, if it's not revolved around finances, because the conversation, even the statement marrying up or having to marry down revolves around finances. You could certainly marry someone.
And education and social status. It's not just the money.
What is social
status, education and finance?
But that centers around finances, though.
Not entirely. It also includes education level, and it also includes social status.
So you mean you're talking education as far as the level of degree that they have, or where they've progressed through in their career or trade? Because you can be highly educated in your trade that might be equal to economically as it would somebody that has a master's degree.
Apparently this is across the board. However you define it, when Black women want to marry at what they feel is the same level they are on or higher, whether that be educationally, socially, or economically, we are forced to date outside our race, marry outside our race, or marry down. Now, this is about income, social status, and education. Obviously not the worth of the human being, but social status is important. Marriage is supposed to be a vehicle of upward mobility. If I'm marrying you and we're joining forces and we're joining our incomes and we're joining our intellect, it should result in higher earnings and greater social status or greater community impact, not less. So that's what the book
From
is
an income
referring to.
standpoint, I agree. From an income standpoint, I agree. And I've said that to, I have one friend in particular that she is basically a millionaire entrepreneur. And her complaint is that she can't find a worthy enough black man that's going to not be intimidated by her or her income. And I've often told her, I say, either you're gonna have to find somebody that's not black, or you're gonna have to find somebody that does not make as much money as you and has like a regular 9 to 5. Because
But
the
that's
attention
true
that you,
for all of us, not just the millionaires. Like that's
What-
true for all Black professional women, all Black entrepreneurs who are making a certain amount of money, not just a
what's true.
6-figure or 7 status.
But speaking to her specifically, I think sometimes the more educated and the more income that a black woman makes, then that guy needs to be more of a, he can be the man of the house, so to speak, but also have a more of a supportive role financially in that household. And he has to be comfortable with that. If he's not comfortable with that, then it's not going to work and she should seek elsewhere. Other than that, I mean, if that's not what you want to do, stop complaining.
It's interesting that all of, and Penny, I'm going to get to you because I saw you were about to talk. It's interesting, though, that both of you, when you're discussing this, you're discussing what men want and what men think, and not necessarily what Black women want or think. Like, if I'm the one who earns more, if I'm the one with more education, why are you talking about what you're comfortable with? Like, yes, clearly you'd have to be comfortable with it, but what about what we're comfortable with?
I'm not a black woman, so how would I know?
Communication?
Communication.
Well, I mean, when you talk
Not
to
a
black
service?
women, when I talk to black women and they express these kind of things to me, I mean, it's more from an emotional standpoint and not more so towards a raw fact standpoint.
Because women are emotional.
True, but
That's what we're looking for in marriage. When that's what women are looking for in marriage.
Okay,
Say it again, Ivo.
Penny. What were you going to say?
You know, I was going to say that, you know, in everything, in all these studies, there's one thing that is in all these studies. I get it. You can find all the empirical data, but in every conversation, everything's centered around money. And in the past, marriage was it was a team thing. If the man was the provider, the wife didn't have to work, and most men don't even care what a woman makes. If he can provide enough to provide for the family, then that's not an issue. He just wants a mate that, you know, fulfills him, you know, spiritually, helps to complete him spiritually, emotionally, and to, you know, the other players in that team to make the family work. Whereas a woman, the conversation centers around money. If she makes a ton of money, she wants someone that makes as much as she does, if not more. For what? I feel like, if you're not going to find that, why not find someone that helps complete the team? If you earn enough, right? If you're earning enough, why not just find someone that is a good dad and a great homemaker, or that, you know, that fills in the other blanks that you don't necessarily fill in as that team person. If it's
the content of his
around
character,
money,
right?
You said what?
The content of his character, right?
Right. I feel like.
Well, how about this? Why can't Black men just focus on earning more money? And it's not all about money. But marriage is supposed to be a vehicle of upward mobility, not just a love thing. When we're talking about marriage outside of the spiritual and religious aspects of it, because we all have different beliefs, on a societal level, marriage is supposed to increase your status in a society because of what marriage does. Black marriages, in particular, are the only ones, apparently, that kind of work this way, where the upward mobility is something we're told by Black men we shouldn't expect.
No one.
When everyone else.
No one
I have never heard a Black man say that.
Their status goes up. When white women marry, their status, their income, it generally goes up, because that's part of the point. Why am I going to be bothered with you if you're not bringing my lifestyle up? If I have to bring my lifestyle down to meet you down,
It's not. How is that? how is that bringing it down? If the American household median income is what, 56 grand a year, right? And you're already making 150 grand a year. I mean, you're trying to go from 100,000 to $500,000. Then it becomes. Yes. But listen, but it becomes centered around money. It's not
centered around money. It's the idea.
But it is.
That culturally, other races and other cultures expect that for marriage to end up becoming profitable, and in the Black community, marriage is often a burden financially.
Okay, so
how is marriage a financial burden?
So let's look at that for just a moment. What are Black men doing wrong as far as from an economic standpoint that's not meeting these Black women's expectations? Because most of the guys that I know, they do work. Most of them are in middle management or upper management, or they have their own businesses. They might not be making a whole lot of money from the very beginning, but they're working towards that. And so when you look at that aspect of it, when you look at hiring rates, they're more likely to hire a Black woman who can then get her education paid for through that employer than they are to hire a Black man who can take on that same benefit.
I'm hearing excuses, Anthony, and it's not that those things aren't true.
It's a question.
This is the stuff that Black women know very well because we marrying y'all. And a lot of us have to marry down to account for that. The problem is marriage is not supposed to be that in society. On a societal level, marriage is supposed to make you more profitable, not less profitable. And sure, if I choose to share my income with my husband and say, hey, you don't have to make as much as me, it doesn't matter, let's just be a team, that's great. But why should Black women be forced into that? Why can't we expect?
But why? I have a question.
Well, Felicia had her hand up.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and then Penny.
Okay, yes. So this is so crazy. In 1965, President Lyndon Johnson gave a speech to the commencement ceremony at Howard University, and he said these exact words: "The breakdown of the Negro family structure is the cause of our ongoing poverty." The breakdown of our family structure, because when the family structure collapses, the children are the ones that suffer the consequences. And when that happens, it affects our whole community. And that has been going on. Lyndon Johnson anybody could stand on the stage and give that speech that he made today. He also gave that speech in 1973 to the Civil Rights Movement. And you can read that speech today and it will be relevant today, because the breakdown of the Black family, and he said this: Black poverty is not white poverty. Marriages in the white community is what keeps the community growing and moving upwards, just like in the Korean community and the Indian community and the Chinese community and the Jewish community. Solid marriages. In the Black community, we have a breakdown of the family structure, the nucleus family. Back when it was a matriarchal society in the Black community, you know what happened with the woman? The woman started abandoning the men, leaving them adrift and alienated when women started making more money, because we wanted liberation and equality. So unless we figure out how to bring back that nucleus family, we need love, respect, and empathy in our community. That is what is lacking in the Black community. There's no togetherness. There's not communication. There's people listening to respond, not even to understand. So Anthony, yes, and Penny, you all could vocalize what you all want to women. But you say when women speak, we talk from a stance of emotion, of course. But when we talk from that, because we're feeling, we want to feel for the Black man. We want the Black man to understand that we are feeling for him. We want him. But he needs to open his ears to hear us and understand that we want him. We're only talking because we want. We want love. We want affection. We want attention. We want a family. We want to nurture you and take care of you, the Black man. But you all need to open your ears and hear us, or else you all will just always be listening to respond and not to understand.
Oh, we hear you, but we also hear you saying you need to make more money. You need to get a better job. You need to get more education. So you can't.
But here's the thing. I have a question.
But is that the only thing that you hear? Do you not hear all of the positive affirmations? Do you not hear? Sometimes it's not just, I want you to make more money. Sometimes
But that's what it boils down
it would
to.
be helpful if you made more money. Let me help you make more money.
Wait, I have a question. I have a question. I have a question. I have a question. So when the roles are reversed, right? When we were in a patriarchal society and men were out earning women and women didn't need to work, they didn't care what the woman made. It was let's do this a team thing. We're gonna pick each other up. We're gonna move forward. But now that women are in the driver's seat, now and again, we talk about all statistics. We don't talk about mass incarceration, their effect on men's ability to earn. We don't talk about discrimination and how it affects men's ability to earn. All the statistics that talk about, hiring practices, it affects men worse than it affects Black women. It affects men worse than that. And all the programs that are designed, all the step-up programs that are designed to assist, poor folks have traditionally benefited women. Why? Because that's because of the way the court.
And they benefit women who don't have men.
Simply to Black men in hardship situations. Again, the data shows that Black men, particularly those who are professional and well-to-do, are more likely to have concurrent relationships, whereas white men are serial monogamous, according to the data. So if you got the money, if you've got the job, and you're still a player, what is it then? You won't be faithful. What is it then?
It's not about us being a player. Women don't want to commit. They get to the point where it becomes so centered around finances. It's not about a relationship. It becomes so centered around finances. I do well for myself, and the conversation is never about anything other than finances. It centers around finances.
Penny, because it's affecting our whole community. It's affecting the whole Black community. It's like, okay, the Black community is in a slump because of money. It's money. We're trying to get out of the slump. It's money. So it's like, is it as all Black men don't want to discuss money?
Okay, because so if a Black woman's making $150,000 a year, and the Black man comes in making $50,000 a year, he just increased their family net worth by $50,000, right? But that $50,000 seems to not be enough. So if he brings $75,000, it's still not enough. If he brings $80,000, it's still not enough.
That's not true.
It has to overcome.
That's not true.
Only quantified by finances, though.
But you just got finished saying that the point of the marriage is so that you can be increased economically. You just got finished saying that. So it can't be, no, we don't want the economics of it, but yes, we want the emotional aspect of it. It can't be both ways.
That's not what I said. That's not what the data said. That's not what Ivo said. That's not what Perul or Felicia said. What we're saying is money is important. Money is not everything, but money is important. And honey, if you don't have any, there are certain things that we just don't need to discuss. If you are broke,
you don't want to discuss anything if they're not to a certain point.
That's not true, Penny.
That's not very true.
There are certain things where if you don't qualify economically to date a certain woman or to marry a certain woman, you just don't. Many of us have children. Many of us are high powered. If you don't have something close to what I need or what I'm offering, you can't help me. What's the point in falling in love if you can't?
Let me ask you a question. If I'm an educator,
because if I work hard and I've committed myself to a certain lifestyle, if you can't help me maintain that lifestyle, much less increase
Why
it,
don't-
what else do we have to talk about?
So if I'm an educator that has been educated for 15 years, because educators don't make much, right? I do well at my job. I can never marry a black female investment banker. I couldn't do it. I couldn't even get close to asking that question because I can't.
I said we shouldn't be forced to. That should be something we choose.
What I'm saying,
not
that
something
goes
we're forced
back.
to do because there are no eligible bachelors
But that
in
goes
our
back to
income
my
bracket.
conversation. That goes back to my point. It centers around income. It doesn't center around education, morals.
Income, but income is important. Love.
Income shouldn't outrank.
Bills.
Listen, income, and so let's take a step backwards. You want to know why people are in relationships they don't want to be in? Because it's not just sex that draws them into relationships, ignoring all the signs. Money is another thing. Comfort is another thing. There are a lot of women that are and men in relationships with people they shouldn't be in because of that comfort level. They want to be comfortable. They want to live in that neighborhood. They don't share morals. They don't share values. And they end up being in this long 2-year overextended toxic relationship because they're focused on the wrong things. And that gets me back to my original point. We're not teaching our kids about marrying for the right reasons. We teach them the wrong reasons to get married.
What are the right reasons?
The right reasons. Your partner.
That's what we do. What are the right reasons?
One of the main reasons that you should get married is you have shared morals and values. That outranks everything else. Because if we don't even worship the same God in the same manner, I don't care what you make, that marriage is never going to last. If you don't view money the same way that I view money, that marriage is never going to last. If you don't have the same, and I'm not talking about financial goals. I'm not talking about that because there have been strong marriages with two people making $25,000 to be married for wealthy people have the highest divorce rates. They have higher divorce rates than poor people do. Why? Because it's centered around money. We are teaching our kids the wrong thing. We don't teach them the right things. Everything's out of order.
What the right things are, though. Finish your list of the right things. Yeah. You said morals. You said, like, let's hear the rest of your list.
My top of my list would be shared morals and values.
Okay.
Number one. That's number one. And that encompasses a lot of stuff. That encompasses your view on God, your view on family, your view on giving back to the community.
I agree.
That's actually that one thing encompasses so many things. That's pretty much it. Because that encompasses
so there's no list. That's just the only thing. Morality is it for you. That's the list.
Share more. So many things go under
like
values,
me, I'm good
though.
for you.
So many things go under values, though.
Well, Penny,
your views on family.
What goes under values?
Your family.
And don't get me wrong. I agree that morals and values is at the top because if I don't feel a certain way, if we don't share the same values, we're going to bump heads on a regular basis, and that's going to lead to a breakdown of communication, and everything else will fall away. However, I am interested in hearing what falls underneath your values and morals.
Is generational wealth here? Because generational wealth absolutely depends on marriage. As a conservative, I know you know that because it's a hot conservative talking point. What about generational wealth?
You can build generational wealth without making a ton of money. My kids, even though I make a decent living, my kids will be set up much better than I ever will be. Because I understand how to leave wealth to them. I understand that. I get that point. It doesn't start. You don't have to start it.
Multi-generational poverty.
You said what?
We have multi-generational
because we don't understand. We don't even understand basic finances. There are people that make $100,000 a year, and Anthony can attest to this, that live like they're making $500,000 a year. They live well above their means. They spend terribly, and they leave their kids in debt.
So
because their wants take priority. Their wants take priority versus the needs of the collective.
But that falls underneath your morals and your values.
But that's finances.
It does. Peru, it does.
Your wants and your needs. Listen, I'm agreeing. You're saying Peru like I didn't agree with you. I agreed with you. What I'm saying though, and let me just say this in addition to it, you don't need to be married to create generational wealth. And I'm saying this from my own experience because like I said, my husband and I, we ain't together, but we do have a list of goals and securities and portfolios that we want to set up for our children. together as co-parents to make sure that they can pass it on to their children.
I totally agree. That's why I say,
Penny, because you're in the hot seat right now, but you haven't been aware. But I want to ask you this. We know the correlation between the nuclear family and generational wealth, lower crime rates, all of those things that we want in a society. If you're conservative for 15 minutes, you're going to hear a whole lot of stuff about family and what it does for society and the nuclear family and all of this. And the numbers are there, the stats are there.
Yeah.
If
I have a question.
create better, safer communities and societies, and they also contribute to continued growth across the board. Why aren't Black men simply looking to do whatever it takes to meet Black women where they are and continue to rise in like standards of Black excellence? Why are you saying that Black women should lower their standards instead of Black men raising theirs by any means necessary?
Has
Listen.
anybody said that?
Well, you're
I've
telling
never-
us that we should be content to marry a man that makes whatever for love. And I agree that a woman, if she wants to choose that, has the right to choose that, and there's nothing wrong with choosing that. Black women are forced to choose that, and that's the problem. If a woman wants to marry a man who doesn't make as much as her, so what? But when those are the only men that you can choose from, that's actually a problem, because then there are goals that we have that we simply cannot meet. Like either we
Like
have
what?
to live the life of a white man, or we have to live the life we don't want to marry a Black man.
What
Sometimes
goals?
he said something. He said, what about if you get married, the woman makes more, far more, but you grow your wealth together? That could not happen if you won't marry a man based on income.
Nobody said that Black women won't. Black women do, because that's all Black women have. What I'm asking is, why are you guys content to force us to do this? Why
No
is
one's-
it focused on Black men?
Nobody's forcing you to do anything.
No one's
how to
forcing
meet
you.
Black women where they are.
No
Because
one's
the first
forcing you to
thing
do
that I
that.
said,
Well, you're
I'm sorry, Penny, go ahead.
criticizing it, but you're criticizing it. You're
Because-
criticizing the attitude that says I shouldn't have to settle. So then,
Okay.
why are you criticizing that when Black women are
If-
forced to settle?
If you don't want to settle, you don't have to. I'm simply saying that
No,
because
oftentimes we do. The numbers
If
say
you-
we do, or we have to
if
marry a white man.
listen, if you don't want to settle, then don't settle and just don't get married. Understanding, this is the thing that I'm trying to say.
What?
If you understand,
Oh my God.
That's the black man's answer. Don't
If
get
you-
married then.
this-
If I'm not good enough as is, just don't marry nobody. Get you a
this
wife.
is
So,
this is why I don't like
Yeah,
these conversations.
Egotistical
This is why I leave these
statement.
conversations alone.
well, so what are you going to do? So what are you going to do as a Black man if you can't find a woman to marry you because she feels like she's marrying below her pay grade? How do you feel about that? What are you going to say? Oh, well, fine, then I want to marry you anyway.
See,
Listen,
okay,
I don't
first of
have
all,
the-
let-
I don't have the
hold on
education.
a second, Penny.
Just
Hold
asking a
on one
question.
second, Penny. So me as a divorced man with children that's single and out here dating now, right?
Uh-huh.
Income is not something that I often, have a conversation with the woman that I'm pursuing. It usually comes out of her mouth first. Now, second of all, when I look at that conversation in totality, I'm looking at her as, is she somebody that I want to be with and can build with, regardless of what her income is? And in that, I'm also looking is, what can I teach her? What can I learn from her? Has nothing to do with her income. So if she's smarter than me in certain aspects, then she's going to bring me along that way. There are going to be other things that I'm going to be more knowledgeable of than her. And I'm going to bring her along that way also. So we have a meeting in the middle. Now, if the income disparity becomes an issue, it's more so an issue on her side than it is on my side. And now if I get up and I work 15 hours a
Of course, that's
day,
what we're saying. Yeah. Why are you
if I
content
work-
with that? Is my question. Why is that
No.
okay with you?
but the thing about it is, if I work 15 hours a day or whatever the case may be, I have my investment portfolio going on. I have all this stuff happening that's not bringing in income into the household. We're not talking about investment income that's going to benefit us in retirement. We're talking about the day-to-day, weekly, month-to-month. I can go on vacation this month because we make X amount of dollars. I'm talking about that's the conversation that most of us are having, the immediate and not the future.
But if you don't have no immediate, why are we talking about a future?
Well, but the point is, if I'm living below my current means, right? If I own a home and I have a business and I have money left over to invest in certain things, I'm doing better than the woman that's making $150,000 a year and lives like she's making $200,000 a year because she has a $300,000 house that she's paying for that she really can't really afford. She has a Mercedes that she really can't afford. She has car insurance and all this other stuff that she can't really afford, but she looks like she's balling.
But that's an individual. I'm talking about Black women in America.
I see them at brunch all day long, every Sunday. They're in there like they have certain things going on, but then when I talk to them about their car insurance,
the women that go to that brunch spot.
But what I'm saying is, when I talk to them about their car insurance or if they have life insurance or anything like that, the first thing they say is, no, I don't have that.
Okay.
So y'all are looking at we're both looking at a small handful of people, or I guess a small percentage of the demographic.
No, I'm not looking at a small handful. I'm looking at America. You are looking at a small handful of people. I'm looking at Black America. All of us.
Okay.
That's a lot.
So it goes back to my original point then. If you're not happy and the other choice is to go outside your race, then why not? Because the Black dudes that can't find the women that they want, what do? They look elsewhere. So why not y'all do that?
But that's
stop complaining about it.
Stop
complaining about it.
Our community.
Thank you for confirming.
right.
So we've been thoroughly kicked to the curb by Anthony. Penny,
No.
have you let Black women go? Are you telling us to just figure it out here in these streets?
He told us just don't get married. Penny said just don't get married.
No. Well,
So what are your choices? What are your choices? Because you're saying Black men should do better. What should we do differently?
What will
why
we do?
aren't y'all? I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a
what
question.
should we do differently? Since
question.
you all have all the answers and you've got all this education and so forth, what should we do differently?
I have a question.
What's your question?
And this goes back to my point that we're not teaching our kids the right thing. So let's get away from the money conversation. Why aren't there are a ton of young college brothers in college? I was one of these guys, but I don't like to speak anecdotally. Certainly you're not earning, high figures in your early 20s. During your college years, you're learning, you're building, right? Why not get married at that point? Why is the conversation, well, I need to get established first before I get married?
Because y'all want to play on the street when we in our 20s.
Okay, all right, okay.
Y'all want to be at the club playing in the street with 15 different women when we in our 20s. That's why.
Are we gonna?
That's not what I'm teaching my son.
Am I gonna get beat up?
To be okay with being the one to grow with the person, like.
Can I finish my point?
This doesn't even sound like a real conversation.
It's not.
Can I finish my point, or am I going to get beat up with the negative stereotypes?
Go ahead, Penny.
Stereotypes. I gave you data. I gave you data that says Black men.
That data did not say anything about Black men in college.
Okay, go ahead.
That data doesn't take into account. That data does not take into account. Number one, y'all get married later, which I think is also not a good idea because as someone pointed out in the group, the older you get, money tends to be more important. And I get that because financial stability is important, not discounting that. So why not do like your white counterparts and marry younger when you're in the building stage?
Because when Black men are young, they want to play with everybody.
And those who do marry younger get cheated on. Those are the ones who end up divorced. The ones who married their college sweethearts got babies outside the marriage.
So what I'm getting from this conversation is us Black men, we're toxic and no good. So why y'all even want to marry us in the first place? That's based upon what you're saying.
I don't think, well.
That's not what we said.
No one
you
said
that,
Penny.
You're saying
we said y'all played enough games, you don't earn enough, but we didn't say you were no good. We didn't say you were toxic.
If the conversation is about a 21-year-old college student, right? You can pick them up at that point and build together.
21-year-old college men don't want to be married. Guess what? I was a 21
Yes, they
year
are.
old woman.
I was gonna say, I'm not a 21-year-old
Really,
college man, so I
Penny?
can't
Yes,
answer
they-
that question.
Because Ivo,
Let's go to Peru.
Ivo.
How did you feel? How did you feel,
Ivo.
Penny? How did you feel when you were 21? And Anthony,
Wait.
Penny,
Let
how
me-
did you two feel when you were 21 and in college?
Perul, let me answer that question. Perul, what did I say in the beginning? I said we're not teaching our kids. We're not teaching them about marriage and how important marriage is. We don't
I
teach that.
understand that,
I made
but
that point in the beginning. We don't
Okay,
even teach that.
So
But
I'm going to
I'm
speak for
I'm
me
just trying to get
specifically. I'm going to speak for me
perspective from the
specifically.
two men on the panel.
So
Just
when I
perspective.
graduated from college,
Uh-huh.
I was looking for someone to marry, and I got
Okay.
married in my 20s. I had my family
So
in my
did I.
20s.
Okay.
So as we got older, the conversation shifted.
As it
because
should, you
As it
evolve with
should.
your partner,
As it
Well,
should.
But if you're not building together,
right?
then it breaks up the nucleus of that family. So the
Correct.
goal is
point,
for
it's
you
kind
to be
of-
building together. So what happens is, and what happened to me, I would say is in my 20s, my picker was not very good. And so what I thought I needed to grow with was not who I actually picked. And then a lot of us end up in that very same situation where we get to our 40s and we realize I've really outgrown this person, or we're not on the same page.
But
And
is
so
that
now
more of
we
a
get
personality
divorced.
thing than a race thing? It's a
Because we're
personality thing at that
talking race
point,
things
right?
right now.
It's not a race thing. I mean, you're young, and the things that are important to
Well,
you
we're
when you're
talking about
21
race,
may
though.
change. This is true, but yes, we are talking about race. However, it doesn't necessarily sound like, and not trying to talk down on what is it you're saying. I completely agree with you. I do think that you should grow with the person that you're with if you start at an age. That's the point of maturity. You find a partner, grow. It's like it's a tree. You grow together, right? You do what it is that you
Exactly.
need to do. However, I think at that point, you kind of have to take the race factor out of it and just understand it definitely is a personality thing. Just because you think that you want to get married at 21 doesn't necessarily mean that you're ready for it. And that goes for men and women.
But okay, so somebody in the group just said that white couples get married in their early 20s and they continue to build over the long haul.
Yeah.
So if we're doing the same thing, and the breakdown in our families happen in our 30s
But
and
we're
40s.
not doing the same thing. White people culturally have different rules and standards for marriage.
Because they don't. It's not centered.
White
It's not
young
simply
people-
centered around finances.
No, that's
Really?
not true at all. It's actually
Really, Penny?
around finances.
It's not.
And white people, yes,
It is not centered.
But guess
No,
what?
they don't say. They don't say. They're not taught. You got to marry somebody, make the most money you want that you need to
No,
make.
they
That's
actually
the
First of all,
primary
you don't
goal.
know really what
They're
they're
not taught
taught.
that.
But the thing is, they're taught.
Yes, they are.
It
Well,
goes back
white
to what
women
you were
are
saying
taught
about
that.
community.
White
Yes,
women
they
are taught
are.
to find
Yes,
somebody
earlier on,
that can take care of them.
hold on. It goes back to what we initially said in the beginning. They are taught early on about financial literacy. So a lot of the portfolios that they have start at 21. So when they get to the age when they're older, when people start to fight about financial issues, they already kind of have their little nest egg set. So that's one less aspect of their relationship they have to worry about. So in order for us to sit here and talk about how we're behind with regard to marriages, if we teach financial literacy early on, when you do get married at 21, you have that thing taken care of. You already have your portfolio line, you have your insurance policy, you have everything else. So when you do get into your late 20s, your early 30s, finance does not become one of those things that you're concerned with. You're trying to build other aspects of your relationship, because finance is one of the biggest reasons why people get divorced, amongst other things. So if we're taught early on, yes, you can have those same standards. Yes, you can get married at a younger age. Yes, you're able to grow, and it's not going to be toxic for everybody. And once again, it's men and women. It's not. We just need to learn how to build properly and go from there. We need better.
But that's something we have to teach our
we do have
children
to teach,
going
which is what
forward.
Penny was saying.
Right.
And Penny did
Yeah.
say that. He said
And
that
we all said that, and the children are the future. But what are these grown folks going to do
But
now?
the situation that we're in right now is what we're trying to address. Now, Ivo, you said you had
Grown
3
folks.
points. You touched on one. What was the second point?
I actually touched on all three. The first was that, I'll go backwards. The third was that Black men tend to have concurrent relationships, whereas white men are more likely to be serial monogamous. So we have faithfulness as a barrier, or lack thereof as a barrier.
I think white men just don't get taught.
So
I
Black
think
men
that
don't
exactly.
And
I
I
agree
think
with that,
they're
Pearl.
forgiven
with
more.
numbers and statistics.
White
I agree
women
with that,
are
Pearl.
forgiving. So a white woman is not going to say, and truth be told, we kind of learned this during the Trump election. White women are going to do whatever it is that the white man tells them to do. So if the white man says, don't say that I cheat, she ain't going to say I cheated.
Parole, preach. And listen.
Okay. And you know why? But you know why they're not going to say nothing? Because they built that financial portfolio for when they were going. She's not going to want to lose her retirement with friggin' John. Becky ain't going to want to do that because she developed that stuff early on. If we're taught to do that earlier, I'm not saying that black men need, but I guarantee you, a black woman don't complain about the black man cheating if he actually got that nest egg set up.
Wealthy young people are taught to network before they need to network. 4-H, Jack and Jill, all the kinds of things that wealthy, well-to-do people put their children in. By the time they graduate college, they have a solid network.
Yeah. But most black folks didn't even know what Jack and Jill is.
But you know what? But I'm going to tell you this. But sometimes, listen, I came from immigrant parents, and I'm not saying that I'm doing very well on, but just and I know for a fact, I put it on everything. I know that the white people and other, they have that advantage. They have that community. They do have that money that they get from the minute they come out of their mom's twat. Okay, they have their thing. However, if you have the education early on, like if I'm just graduating from college or I'm just getting out of high school and it's already set up, just be, they're ahead, yes they are, but that doesn't mean that we need to all of a sudden say we can't do it.
Okay, so let me ask this question on another note.
We need to teach our children right now. Like I need to turn around and tell, like my kids already know about stocks. My middle kid already has a little plan of what he wants to do. You need to educate earlier. So I bet you if my son gets married at 21, he's gonna have a financial portfolio, and when he decides that he wants to cheat on his wife, hopefully he won't at 35. She ain't gonna be complaining, and they're not gonna be talking about I made more money than you and I'm running off. Sorry. I ain't saying it's right, but he's learning now. We have to teach now. So as an older generation, we know better. We know right now finances are going to be important because we can't work forever, and somebody's going to need to take care of us, and it's going to be us. And if we're not doing it with our spouses, living together on some island off of our nest egg, we need to take care of it ourselves. And right now, as adults, instead of sitting here and complaining about this person makes this much more money and this person makes less money, teach our people so that they're not in the same position as us. They're not looking for somebody to have the money so that we can, say I can date outside my race or feel a way about it, because this whole I need to be able to be a white man or a black man or whatever it is actually kind of foolish, truth be told. And I'm not saying foolish because we don't need to, we don't need to be focused on that. We need to be focusing on doing what it is for ourselves. When we do find that appropriate person, we can build together.
So
if we all focus on that, I think we get better results.
Yeah.
True.
Anthony?
So we already talked about the future aspect of it and how we're teaching. Are we looking at our friends' children on who could be more compatible with continuing the education that we're doing now, almost like an arranged marriage, or more so like an arranged meeting that says your family and my family can continue to build and move forward, which is something that other cultures do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't personally know enough Black families that I would feel comfortable doing that with. The network isn't strong enough for that. Not here locally. And we
need more education. We need more education and more networking in that aspect.
Because I mean, if there's not a network, I think why not create it?
Well, that's what we're working on. But what I'm saying is, it's not like I can go down the street and find a Black family that I want to grow with my children to potentially marry off my children to people in that family. Unfortunately, we are so diverse that I don't know any Black families within the immediate proximity where I am, where I would feel comfortable with that kind of partnership right now. Not that no Black families exist, but in my local area that I'm close with, like the pickings are kind of slim for that level of networking when it comes to marriage and somewhat arranged marriages. I don't think the Black community is there.
And
Well,
that
I
kind
mean,
of
we have
taps
to
into
start
that other
somewhere. Have you ever
conversation
heard
that
of
we
the
had
Patel
about people
Convention?
moving out. Sorry.
The Pateo Convention?
Yeah, have you ever heard of that?
I've been
No.
invited
You've been invited to the Patel Convention?
because my
So,
family's
there's
Indian.
there's a marriage component to the Patel Convention where all these Indian families with the last name Patel get together and the parents introduce their children to other Patel children so
It's
that they
part
can
of my
continue
culture
to
because I'm
further
part
their,
Indian.
yeah, so they can continue to further their tradition of being financially free.
I
So
think I
we
mentioned that.
have,
That's why I was supposed to be arranged for that reason. I think I said that
we,
in another thing. Like I was supposed to be arranged marriage for a similar reason than that. They were trying to align our families so that we can go together. And my mom was like, hell no. That's not happening.
so is that
Well, Black
something
people
that,
kind of
that as
tried to do
African
that with Black
Americans,
letter organizations, but it didn't work out so well. We working on it, I guess.
You
because,
know what? So can I say something?
sure.
It's so interesting listening to all the panelists and listen to discussions. And one thing that I think the men have really missed, this discussion was to talk about the importance of the Black family as it pertains to our moving forward as a community. Moving forward as a Black community, moving forward and upwards is going to take massive financial movement. And I don't understand why it becomes a battle of the ego. Like the Black man is so afraid, ashamed, he just does not like to talk about money. To me, it's an egotistical battle that he needs to fight within himself. Because I can tell you something. A Black man that has a well-developed ego does not run around in circles discussing money. He will sit at the table and he will talk about money. He's not afraid to talk about his financial role as a man in the home, in the community, in the church. He does not shy away from it. A man with a well-developed ego does not shy away from financial discussions, especially with women. I have always and only seen it is men that have underdeveloped egos and they have issues with money. They have the biggest problem sitting down and talking about financial issues. This is not about if you want to take care of Becky or if Shakira wants a pair of shoes, or if you're dating some chick that wants you to buy her a handbag, or she's dating you 2 months and she wants you to pay her bills next week. That's not the issue here. The issue is, what are we going to do as a people to move our community forward? Because these stupid discussions that we keep having going nowhere. It winds up like a battle of the sexes and a battle of the egos. That's not what it's about. It should be about, you are a Black man. I'm a Black woman. I want to see our children have I want to leave out the generations to come something.
Okay.
So yes, we're going to discuss money. We're going to discuss love. We're going to discuss sex. We're going to discuss all of that. But at the end of the conversation, is it going to move us forward?
So where's the education on all these topics? Are they available out there? Are men not going to them?
It's available. We need to create it for our community. We need to create it. It's up to us as a village, individually. If you have people that you're able to do it with them. If you don't have anybody, it's still your responsibility. I don't have too many Black people around where I live, but it's still my responsibility to educate my children. Now, if we were to come up with a central location where we can keep all this information for us, then yeah, we can have it as a reference point and everybody will have the information that we share. So we don't have to be in the same, we're in a digital age. We don't have to be in the same location, but as long as we can communicate with one another and move forward together, yeah, we can do that. So I agree. Egos do need to be put aside. It shouldn't matter if you're man or woman. If we know this is our common goal and we're saying that we need to be able to develop community, family, marriage, all of those things, then yeah, make it happen.
So to come back around, do we all believe that it's important, that marriage is important in the Black community? Do we all agree with that? I agree. I think it is.
Yes,
5 minutes.
it's important.
That's why we're here having the show. We all agree that it's important. We clearly don't all agree on why. We also don't agree on the function of marriage societally, economically, and like Felicia said, which I believe is at the heart of all of this, we have to overcome these ego issues when we're having a conversation about marriage in the Black community, because if we're arguing about who makes the most and why that's important or not, we're not moving forward. We're not coming together as a unit. Of course, there are going to be successful Black couples where the woman makes more than the man. I know couples like that are successful and building generational wealth. And then that shifts sometimes. Sometimes she may make more for a while. And then as he's building his businesses and his wealth, his income comes up and surpasses hers. It's not the most important thing in the world on an individual basis. It becomes important on a societal basis when Black women are forced to marry men who make less than them because there are not enough eligible bachelors who have the same social, economic, or educational status as them. That is a problem. And Black women are simply asking Black men to have some empathy. And instead of saying, well, go on and date the white man, well, how about Black men take their status in society more seriously? We all understand the setbacks, but so what?
But when it's not that we're saying giving up and saying then date somebody else. And whenever I have these conversations, it's like, okay, I get that Black women are amazingly educated and now earning us at a ridiculous, y'all are earning everybody, quite frankly. We ignore all the systemic things that have been in place for literally hundreds of years, and we're trying to play catch up. I mean, literally trying.
We're not ignoring that. Huh? We're not ignoring that. We're just asking you to do more.
We're doing, but we're doing the best that we can. I mean,
no, you're not. No, you're not.
Listen, the conversation is for Black men to check their ego at the door. All right, I don't have an income problem or an education problem, but yet in these conversations, no matter who I've had these conversations with women that earn a fraction of what I do with GEDs, and it's like, you need to step your game up. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, there is no game to step up.
Yeah.
Right. And it's because it's not just about men checking their ego. We recognize the systemic issues that exist, right? But I get back to my original point. I'm not saying that income isn't important. Okay, since we're being fully disclosing, I married a woman, I was college educated, making six-figure, married a woman that was still in college. I got her to switch her major into what she wanted to do, and then slowly, I don't want to say took care of her because we were a team. We didn't have separate nothing. I believed that what mine was hers and what hers was mine. Mm-hmm. And so I helped her to finish her education and what she wanted to do. And I knew at some point when she got to where she wanted to do, she would get there. That was my goal. I didn't care about her income. She made minimum wage. It wasn't the point. I'm saying I wasn't forced to do it. It was something that I wanted to do because my goal was someone that shared the same morals and values, someone that worshiped the same way that I worship. That was my goal. I knew all of those other things would fall in the line if her values align with mine. And I'm simply saying, instead of being so centered around finances, there's nothing wrong with your aim, you just have to change your target. If you find a guy that has the same financial values that you do, the same values that you do, maybe he doesn't earn what you do, but if you sow into that relationship, he will get there and y'all will take off. But if the focus is simply on that one piece that will come, and if you look at it from the standpoint of he's beneath me, then that's ignoring all of the other outside components, then we're going to stay in the same circle.
The numbers say that's not true. The numbers say it doesn't just take off because these marriages are not just taking off. There are always exceptions. There are always people who do it right. but the numbers do not agree with what you're saying. The statistics do not say that, because there are women doing that and they're sewing into these Black men and it's not taking off. Why?
But I think that like Perua pointed to earlier, I think that the numbers are skewed because two very good examples, Melania Trump, Hillary Clinton, they never left. They stayed in their terrible marriage. I give Black women credit. They're not going to deal with that nonsense. I will be the first to say that. They just have a higher sense of self-respect than to deal with being, if Obama would have flirted with the woman and it got to Twitter, I think Michelle would be like, I'm out of here. You see what I'm saying? And so I give y'all credit for that, for having a higher standard. But if the conversation, on the principal conversation of marriage, I mean, what's the goal? If marriage it improves communities, right? Why not just marry, why not just marry somebody else and help them to build? Why does that person already have to be established?
We're going to leave that question for everybody to think about, because we have run out of time. I will only say, generally, in our society, in Western society, men propose to women. Do you want us to start proposing to y'all? Because you're telling us, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Well, we do generally in this culture, in this society, expect for men to propose to us. Where are the proposals? Where are the proposals?
I inboxed all of y'all. None of y'all responded to me yet.
I didn't like the ring you sent me.
We're not being.
I think that's a whole nother topic, because I've seen posts in various different groups where it's like a game to see how many times somebody can get proposed to by different guys so they can turn them down.
Well, those are just the wrong people that you need to use as your sample set.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying.
This is going to require a lot of conversations, but
exactly.
I'm glad that the members of Black Space are willing to have these conversations. I appreciate all of the panelists, especially Penny and Anthony, for taking such a beating and doing it with a smile. It was passionate.
Glad my health insurance is paid up.
Hey.
Blood pressure went up a little bit, huh?
We got a little passionate and familiar, but we're family here at Black Space. And
I ain't proposing to nobody.
The devil is a lie. But it was a great time.
Please don't.
Great discussion.
Please don't. Please don't.
I think I've certainly gained some insight. You put some things on my mind to think about, everyone. I appreciate it. I believe the Black Space viewership has a lot to think about and discuss with regards to this. I know I have some comments to go back to and address.
An address? Ooh, y'all in trouble.
Oh, Lord.
This is a conversation we need to have, and we need to have it often, because if we're not communicating, and we're not communicating in a more sophisticated, effectual way, we're not going to make progress. So thank you, everyone, for being willing to have the tough conversations. Black Space, thank you for being willing to have these tough conversations with us. We're trying to move forward together. We're glad that you tuned in. Please tune in again on Thursday for Politics with Penny. It's going to be awesome. I'm sure it'll be just as riveting and controversial. Black politics always are. So for signing off, thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Black Space, a safe space for our community.